that we will find a lot of things come out that bless your heart. So, and I don't usually preach in this manner that I want to preach today or teach, but I want to give a historical background of this particular text. I don't usually go in that vein, so follow me today. Just know that you're still in the house of God, and the anointing is still fresh. But I'm going to give some historical information, and sometimes when you begin to talk history or historically from a text, Shakira, sometimes people say, well, I feel nothing in that. No, there's no anointing in that. But the reason why I'm laying down this historical foundation is so you can better understand the words of Jesus Christ to this church. Can I proceed? Yes. This message, Claudette, is the seventh message to the seventh angel concerning the seventh church. This is the last of Jesus' letter to the churches. As you understand, the book of Revelation opens up with the introduction of Jesus Christ he introduces himself early in chapter 1 as the I am. Yes. He who was and is to come. Yes. The one who was dead and is alive forevermore. Yes. He gives an introduction of himself, and then he says, I have 7 letters to write to 7 churches, or he calls them to the angel of the 7 churches. In other words, the angel represents the pastor of the church. So God was giving a message to the 7 churches in Asia Minor. And each of these churches had something peculiar and unique about them that Jesus had to address them. Several months ago, we dealt with the Philadelphia church, Robbie, where we understood that this was the church with the open door policy. Where he says, I have set before you an open door. This is the church of Philadelphia. And we understand that one of the powerful revelations that we learned from the church of Philadelphia was that he said concerning them, Lana, that this is a people who had little strength. He celebrated them for having little strength. And we looked at that and examined it, Marvel, for what it was, because it doesn't seem reasonable that he would celebrate or commend them for having little strength until we found the history of the Philadelphia church. And when we consider that their little strength was great in compared to what they really should have been after what they've been through. So to have little strength was an elevation considering what they had gone through. So now let me look at a couple of truths and facts concerning the history of the Laodicean church. Let me talk first of all about the city, the city of Laodicea or Laodicea. I want you to write this. The city, the name Laodicea means the people rule. The people rule. That's what the city, the name of the city Laodicea means. The people rule. That's something to bear in mind as you understand Jesus' message to this church. The name means the people rule. Already you ought to see something in that. The people rule when really God should be ruling. So already you see something of a default in the spirit of the city. The city was a city located 40 miles southeast of Philadelphia. The city would have perhaps been compared to a modern day Las Vegas of today. A city with bright lights and a blooming economy, even when the rest of the states, we ain't churching out yet, son. I'm just getting started and I got a long way to go. So y'all pull up a seat for him if he can sit in the front, because I got a robe. So that the city would be compared to a Las Vegas, a sin city. It was a city, I want you to get that picture in your mind, that the city of Laodicea was a city that was a commercial city. It was a rich city. Are you understanding this? Yes. It was a coastal city that was renowned for its banking, trade, and industry. It was a major commercial city. Everyone wanted to visit Laodicea. It was a city where you would want to go when you need a lift in your life emotionally, because it was a city that never slept. It was a city that was famous for wool, that they made carpets, marble, and clothing with the wool. And they used to export the carpets and the wool. They used to export the wool all over the other cities and even throughout Asia. This was a city that everyone knew about, Laodicea. In addition, the city was a major medical center of that day. It became famous for one particular pharmaceutical product. It was called an eye salve or an eye ointment that was made right in the city. And in that day, that ointment was the only thing that they had available to treat any kind of eye disease or poor eyesight. So people from afar came into the city of Laodicea just to buy this eye salve. They were a major export city. They exported gold, precious stones, and wool all throughout the world. But the city had one major problem. The major problem that the city had from a geographical standpoint was that the city had a poor water system. Everything else was working right, but they had a poor water system. Therefore, they had to import water and aqueducts from other surrounding cities. Now they were known, I want you to get this, they were known as a city that was a major export city. So they exported, they supplied to the other cities around them everything of that day, in particular eye salve, gold, other precious stones. But the one thing that they didn't have, or a poor system, was the water system. So they had to import water from two cities. The first city they imported water from was Colossae. You remember Paul read a letter to the Colossians. The second city was the city of Philadelphia, which I said was only 40 miles southeast of the city. So they had to import water from two cities. Now, on one side, on one end of the city, on one end of Laodicea was Colossae, on the other end was Philadelphia. So they, through aqueducts, they had these pipes that brought in water, just like how y'all borrow water from Andros. Y'all in Nassau borrow water from Andros. So the city, the city of Laodicea borrowed water from Colossae and from Philadelphia. The problem was, in Colossae, it was a mountainous city, and the waters were cold because they came from high in the mountains, from the springs of Colossae. And so when the water came into the city, the water was icy cold. But from the city of Philadelphia, it was a Mediterranean city on a Mediterranean coast, and the water that they got came from the hot spas of the Mediterranean. So when those two waters would converge in the center of the city, the temperature of the water became lukewarm in the city. I want you to get this revelation, because you understand why Jesus said what he said to the church. So on one side, they are importing cold water from the city of Colossae. On the other side, they are importing hot water from the city of Philadelphia. And the two waters emerge in this tank that they kept in, and the water